Dear students, I am Dr. Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, Government First Grade College, Shira, Tumkur District. The topic of today's lecture is host specificity. So this comes under paper 4, that is insect vectors and diseases, BSc 4th semester Zoology, Tumkur University. The host specificity. As I told you in the previous classes that the disease causing pathogens, they are almost they are the parasites. They need the host body to survive and replicate or multiply in numbers. Okay, so in this context the host is very specific. They need they are in search of host for their survival in the environment. Okay, so sometimes some of the disease causing pathogens, they usually survive only in a specific type of host. They will not survive in all other host body in the environment. They survive only in a particular group of organisms where the favorable environment is present. Okay, the physiological, the parameters and other environment, the temperature, the physiological parameters, pH. So all this has to be favorable for the growth and survival of the disease causing agent or the parasite. So only such a favorable environment host will be selected by the disease causing agent. This is very similar to that of the coronavirus. The coronavirus so will survive only when it enters into the body of the human beings. Is it not? So these viruses are the disease causing pathogens, the bacteria, virus and other the pathogens. They are in need of the host. They have to survive. Okay, so in order to survive they need a body, the other's body, the host body. Okay, so here the specificity always refers to they survive only in such organisms where they find this favorable environment. Okay, what is called as the host specificity. They are very specific, they are very unique and they survive only in the body of such organisms. What is called as host specificity. It is very likely that the parasitism in the course of time, so such the vectors, okay, so the vectors would become more and more perfectly adapted to the new environment. So vectors are those organisms, they usually transmit the disease causing agent from one individual to the another individual. Sometimes what happens, so these the disease causing agent, they enter into the body of the vectors and these vectors or the organisms, they usually they do not go in search of this disease causing agents. Okay, this disease causing pathogens only they enter into the body of the vectors. Okay, and eventually they lose their power to live and reduce in the outside world. So such parasitism would expected to occur first in the cold-blooded aquatic animals. So parasitism, as all of you know that parasitism is a phenomenon and it is an animal association, it is an animal relationship very much present in the nature where the parasite has to depend on the other organism for their food and shelter. Okay, it cannot be able to prepare its own the food and shelter. For this reason it has to depend on the other organism. Okay, so here that organism is called as the parasite and the relationship is called as the parasitism. The parasite, in order to, as far as the survival of the parasite is concerned, this parasite has to be present in the body of the other organism, either ecto or endoparasite. Okay, right. In this context, such parasitism would be expected to occur first in the cold-blooded aquatic organisms, and subsequently it has expanded to the warm-blooded land animals. Also, we can see this parasitism phenomenon, and host specificity is being operated. It is significant that most of the common genera of the insect order Siphonoptera, example the fleas, have the representatives of the phylum Arthropoda and comes under the class Insecta. So these Siphonopterans, especially the fleas, which are adapted themselves to the outside of the body, they are present as an ectoparasites on the body of the other organisms, such as rodents like the rats, mice, squirrels, rabbits, etc. So they are the bloodsuckers, and would be then adapted to living in the presence of the blood as the nutrient material on which the vertebrates feeds. Specificity of Siphonoptera vectors for the particular host is much disputed question, striking similarity between such parasites in different species of the mammals. Okay, so here there is a complexity where you can see the favorable environment, the same type of favorable environment will be present in the closely related species of the host. Okay, so this is quite very much present in the environment. So the selection of the host is up to the parasite. Okay, the same type of environment is present in the closely related species of the host, that involves the birds, mammals, etc. Okay, so such complexity can also be present in the environment. So this specificity of Siphonopterans will be up to the parasite to decide what related species has to be selected for their survival. Together with the fact that nearly all the species from man are transferable to the rats and other animals. So here, as I told you, the rat, the environment which is present in the rat's body and the human body is 90% more or less the similar physiological parameters are present. The host varieties, that is mere the races of a single species for a time being, especially adopted to a particular host species by the virtue of having lived in that host for a long time, but capable of transfer to the different host under favorable circumstances. This is what I wanted to explain. So there are several organisms having the close relatives. The close related species are very much present in the environment. Sometimes what happens, it is up to the parasite to decide so what organism has to be selected for their survival. Sometimes they select rat species, sometimes they select squirrel species, sometimes they select the mice species. Okay, so the environment which is present operating in all these closely related host species is more or less same. Okay, sometimes these pathogens, they change the habit from one place to the other place. This is up to the parasite to decide the host body. Blood and tissue parasites. Blood and tissue parasites in general show more specificity than other parasites. Those parasites which feeds on the blood, okay, they show more unique specificity than other types of parasites. But even among these, there is much variation. Again, there is the peculiarness and uniqueness can also be seen. They can also change the host from one host species to the other host species. The human malaria parasites. The human malaria parasites are strictly confined to the primates. But the malaria parasites of birds show less specificity. This is the difference can be seen here. The malarian parasites of the humans strictly confined to the primates. Okay, but at the same time, the malaria parasites of the birds, they show less specificity when compared to the human beings. The Schizotrypanum cruzi is an example of the blood and tissue parasite. It is a blood and tissue parasite that can infect a widely defined organism, mammal species, that involves the bats, rodents, dogs, and the man. The question of host specificity is important for epidemiological standing point of view, since it involves the question of extent to which the other animals may act as reservoirs for the human parasites. So this is where the question arises: how the parasite take the shelters, and how long they take the shelter in a particular organism, and after some time they change their host species from one organism to another organism, and sometimes the outbreak occurs. There are so many physiological the parameters, and so many question arises as far as the epidemiological point of view, that the extent to which the other animals may act as reservoirs in the environment. So sometimes some organisms sometimes bat acts as a reservoir, sometimes dogs acts as reservoirs. Okay, so this is very important, that this is up to the parasite to decide what group of organisms has to be decided by the parasite in order to be present in the body of their host, either the bat, rodents, or the dogs, or the human beings for that matter. Many of the siphonopterans adapted themselves to outer side of the body as an ectoparasite, and the surfaces of rats in the bloodsuckers, they would be then adapted to living in the presence of the blood on which the vertebrates feed. Blood and tissue parasites in general, they show more specificity than the other parasites. The uniqueness that is due to the parasites which are exclusively, they feed on the blood of the host body. That is very important. Okay, the blood of the one organism differs from the blood of the other organism as far as the composition is concerned. So the uniqueness is present here. Okay, so the blood and tissue parasites in general, they show more specificity than other parasites, but even among these there is a much variation can also be seen. The human malaria parasites are strictly confined to the primates, but the malaria parasites of birds show lesser specificity when compared to the human beings. On the other hand, the fleas shows the high degree of host parasite specificity. This is the high degree of the variability and the specificity can be seen as far as the fleas belonging to the order Siphonoptera. So where you can see a variety of different species of fleas which are present occupy the different organisms, like the rat fleas, okay, cat fleas, and Xenopsila chiopis, oriental rat flea. Okay, so different varieties of different species of these flies, they usually select a particular group of hosts. So in this way, the host specificity is being operating in the environment. So dear student, this is all about the host specificity, and these are the reference materials along with the link. And this is the time of COVID-19 pandemic. The second wave is operating now. Take precautions. Wash your hands frequently with soap and use sanitizers. Use face mask or face covering. Maintain the social distance minimum of 2 meters between the individuals. Stay home, stay safe, save lives. Thank you.